All right, guys, 6 o'clock. You ready to start?
Get it going.
All right.
You're in charge.
Can you hear me? I've got to tell you, my computer just crashed. I'm on my phone.
Yes, but we can hear you this time, so that's okay.
Good thing. All right, let's get started. Good evening. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effective both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA and the emergency ordinance, the Fairfax County Athletic Council needs to make certain findings and determination for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. But this time I don't feel like I have to yell. First, because each member of the Fairfax County Athletic Council is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask that each member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location from which you're participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to ensure that you can hear each of your colleagues. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can be heard with every other member. Jason?
All right. Good evening, everybody. Braddock District, Marsha Pape Daniels. Braddock alternate, Marco Mira. Drainesville, Greg Beckwith. Or Drainesville alternate, Brian Lewis. Hunter Mill, Jeremy Lee. Alternate, Harold Leff. Lee District, Lisa Mickey. Lee alternate, Bill Bright.
I am present from my home in Alexandria.
Thanks, Bill. Mason District, Barbara Lowry.
I'm here from my home in Mason District.
Thanks, Barbara. Mount Vernon District, Lester Munson.
Present here from my home in the Mount Vernon District.
Thank you. And Mount Vernon alternate, John Corley. Providence District, Steve McLaughlin.
I am here from my home in the Providence District.
And Providence alternate, Kelly Ego-Oswala. Springfield, Mike Thompson.
Sorry, I'm late. I'm here.
Okay, I got you, Kelly. Thank you.
Okay.
Yep, Mike Thompson is here. I didn't change my voice.
All right. Thanks, Mike. Springfield alternate, Mark Heilbrun. Sully District, Gary Flather.
I am here from my home in the Sully District.
And alternate, Mark Abbott. Diversity at large, Mark Fernandez. Or alternate, Eric Sohn. Member at large, Catherine Quinn.
I'm here from my home in Reston.
Thanks, Catherine. And alternate, Anne-Marie Swope. Town of Clifton, Jeff Stein. Town of Herndon, Roland Taylor.
Roland Taylor, I'm here in my home in Herndon.
Thanks, Roland. Town of Vienna, Sam Altoff. Baseball Council, Rob Honey.
I am here at Westfield High School.
Thanks, Rob. Basketball Council, Steve Bergstrom.
Here from the Braddock District.
And basketball alternate, Stu Clark. Fast pitch softball, Susie Williamson. Or alternate, Ryan Buchanan. Football Council, Mark Miena. Or alternate, Ted Hollingsworth. Lacrosse Council, Marianne Wagner. Alternate, Dave Paddock. Slow pitch softball, Christine Idup. Soccer Council, Lula Bauer.
I'm here in my home in Alexandria.
And soccer alternate, Trish Moxie. And then I just saw you pop on. Marsha Pape Daniels, Braddock District.
Yes, I'm here. Sorry, I had trouble signing in.
Oh, no worries at all. Thanks, Marsha. And Volleyball Council, Rob Bailey. And alternate is also Anne-Marie Swope. I don't believe is on. Women's Sports, Jenny Cantwell. and alternate Hillary Richardson. Park Authority Kurt Lewis.
Here from my home in Fairfax.
And Mike Thompson is still here.
Yep.
Fairfax County School Board Bill Curran.
Present from my home in Fairfax.
Thank you. And actually, Melanie Marin, I heard today, is getting, Megan McLaughlin has taken her place as the school board representative, but unfortunately, she couldn't attend tonight. Community Use, Vicky Garner. Or John Chapman. And NCS, Lloyd Tucker.
Here from Springfield.
Thanks, Lloyd. Sarah Allen. Keisha Dodson. Karen Avisado. And Mark Martino.
I am here from home.
All right. I believe we have a quorum. It was close. Let me count them. 5, 6.
Are we reading for or against?
So we have 12. Isn't it 13?
Can anybody hustle up somebody by email?
Steve, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, I just suggest we proceed with the presentations and hope another person comes.
Sure.
Well, but I think, I believe 12 is a quorum, aren't there? There are 23 members of the council, right?
No, sorry, I wasn't keeping track of that part.
Aren't there 23 spots on the council? So 12 is a quorum by one.
Yep, it's 23.
I'll vote for that.
Yep, Mike, you're correct.
Okay.
Good Steve with the math.
That's why I went to law school.
Okay.
It looks like a number just signed on. Is that 860-798-0752?
Yeah, hey everybody, it's Tom Ferry.
Oh, hi, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm sorry. I struggled to get in with the Teams video, so
no problem.
I'm glad I got through that way. Yeah.
With you. Okay, perfect. So at this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to Vice Chairman so that I may be heard to make the requisite motion. I move that each member's voice may be adequately heard. Other members of Fairfax County.
This is Mike Thompson. I second the motion.
Are there any objections? Motion is approved.
Second, having established that each member's voice may be heard by each other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures. The fact that we are meeting, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we arranged for public access. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic make it a Fairfax County Athletic Council to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that is such FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of the Fairfax County Athletic Council. The presence of the public cannot be safely or practically. I further move that the Fairfax County Athletic Council may conduct this meeting electronically via.
This is Marcia. I can't hear Lula.
Team, and that the public may access this meeting by calling 1-571-429-5982. You can't hear me?
I would make
Lula, if you're all right with it, I'll read
Yes.
the last two. I'll read the last two sentences that nobody heard.
Okay. Can you hear
all right.
me? Can you hear me?
Pardon me?
It's just intermittent, Lula. It comes in and out.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. I think where you dropped off, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of the Fairfax County Athletic Council in the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the Fairfax County Athletic Council may conduct this meeting electronically via Microsoft Teams, and that the public may access this meeting by calling 1-571-429-5982, phone conference ID 141-803-804 #.
I second the motion. This is Mike Thompson. I second the motion made by Lula as read by Gary.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any objections? The motion's approved.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Finally, it is required that all the matters addressed on today's agenda must be addressed the emergency itself, if necessary for continuity for Fairfax County government and or statutorily required or necessary to continue operations and the discharge of the Fairfax County Athletic Council lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
Second.
Stephen seconded. Are there any objections? The motion is approved, and I will hand the virtual gavel back to Lula.
Perfect. Thank you. And sorry about that. Are there any citizens that are present that would like to address the council at this time? Nope. We will go on to the next agenda item, presentations to the council. Is Catherine Quinn?
Sure. Lil, 1 second. Chris Pulley actually had a quick update on Champions of Character real quick. If he could report out, and then we'll get to the presentation.
Hey,
Chris.
all right, Jason. Hey, thank you. I appreciate it, Lula. Real quick, I just wanted to give an update on Champions. As you guys know, the last meeting that we had, we were looking to move the ceremony to the winter season to accommodate the fall sports coming out of COVID. And so we do have a request in for the boardroom and the forum the first week in February. We're awaiting approval for that to be done. Myself and Susie, who's not on tonight, we've been discussing some things, and we're hoping to do it in person, but we will also be brainstorming virtual options this year just in case. So, but we want to do it in person, but we wanted to be able to pivot should we need to. Second thing is that just a couple of things that we wanted to do for you guys. We wanted to design a template that has a sample write-up of what a good write-up looks like. I know a lot of times we get write-ups and individuals are submitting stats for their players and touchdowns, et cetera. But we want to make sure that we post something on our website that shows what good character looks like and what will help your write-up ascend to the top. So we thought that was a good idea, and that would help our patrons submit more polished write-ups. We also want to post a timeline on the website, so we're going to do that, post a timeline to keep folks on track for submission, dates to be mindful of during the submission process leading up to the event that's coming up in February. For our individuals here on the council, our council reps, we wanted to design a cut and paste template that will help the sports reps to send out to their listservs to help us with submissions. So that way we're not scrambling at the 11th hour to try to get deserving individuals to submit for these awards. And the idea behind that is to minimize extra work and to keep it simple. We don't want you guys having to write a whole deal in terms of an email to drum up support. We want to have something we can just kind of cut it, paste it, send it out. And what I would do on my end is kind of send a reminder through Jason to send that out. So remind you to send that out to your individual. So and keep you posted on what we have currently in terms of submission and where the holes are. And just lastly, the whole subcommittee will be meeting in the next 2 weeks to really start brainstorming the event and moving forward from there. So again, the first week in February is what we're looking at. And I just wanted to give a quick update to the council. Any quick questions that anybody has?
Yeah, Chris, this is Mike Thompson. Something that might be useful. The Park Authority last year had to conduct the Ellie Doyle Awards virtually, and is going to have to do that again this year. So that you may want to talk to them. There was a lot of positive feedback last year from it, but they may have some best practices and things they learned that could be useful to what you're doing.
Great idea. I appreciate that, Mike. And what award was that?
The Ellie Doyle. It's the annual awards ceremony that there's a whole series of awards the Park Authority gives out each year, and it's held the Friday a week before Thanksgiving.
Okay, I appreciate that, Mike. That's a great suggestion. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Lester, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, I apologize if this is a dumb question. Could someone share the website that was mentioned for the awards? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat right now.
Thank you so much, Chris. I have to say that's one of my all-time favorite events. So thank you for that update.
Yes, ma'am. I appreciate it.
Sure, absolutely. Shall we move forward with the presentation, Jason?
Yeah, I apologize for that. Catherine, if you would like to introduce Mr. Ferry, floor is yours.
Sure. And Jason, I sent you the slides, or I'm happy to share them if you can't. I don't know if I have screen sharing ability. But I'm thrilled to introduce Tom Ferry. He is the executive director of the Aspen Institute Sports and Society program, and also runs the Project Play program. And I had the good fortune of meeting Tom recently and learning about his efforts to draft the Children's Bill of Rights in sports. And so he's been gracious enough to join us tonight and introduce us to that document that they put together and share a little bit more information about that. So with that, I will turn it over to Tom.
Thanks, Catherine, and hello, everybody. I'm sorry I can't see you and my technology on my end. I think I've got a weird internet connection. This doesn't allow me to join you by video, but, you know, happy to be part of this. And look, I've got nothing to sell you, so don't worry about that. What we do at the Institute is we create resources. They're you know, all free, and they're meant to be useful to entities such as your athletic councils, well, programs and policymakers, and an array of other leaders, you know, sectors that touch the lives of children. So, yeah, you know, the Project Play, just a very quick high-level background is, you know, it's the signature initiative of our Sports and Society program. It's one of the more, if not the most visible initiative at the Aspen Institute, you know, in terms of media visibility and so forth. We get written up a good bit by different publications because we produce a lot of data, and we really spend a lot of time thinking about solutions on how to get and keep children playing sports and developing through sports in this country. We know where the gaps are. We collect that on an annual basis. And we, you know, really try to organize people around the best ideas. One of those ideas is basically a statement of the rights that children have in sports. And this flows from research that I've done when I was covering the Olympics a couple of years ago with NBC Sports around Norway. Okay, Norway, the Winter Olympics, got 39 medals, record, and they, you know, they started peeling back the layers a little bit, realized that 94% of kids in that country play organized sports, and it's very much tied into, their whole sport concept is tied into addressing, you know, recognized national needs around public health or education or civic cohesion or whatever else it may be. It's a very impressive sports system. And when you look at the system, you talk to the folks over there who put it together, who redesigned it 20, 25 years ago. And remember, you know, Norway is a, you know, population of 5 million people. So I'm not sure how many people live in Fairfax County, but it's probably not that dissimilar of a population to address, right? So don't think of it as a nation, think of it as like a state or a really large county in many ways. And when I went over there, you know, they showed me this document, this 6 to 8 page document that was all about the rights that children have in sports, and was really a call to make sport accessible to every kid and make it developmentally appropriate and really foster a love of game. And so we don't have anything like that in the United States here. We have sport activity, we have a lot of it, and a lot of it's running at cross purposes. And so what we created here, and this is, are you able to see this deck that I've got up in front of you, or no?
Yes,
you can see it. Okay, so this is basically an adaptation of an event we hosted when we launched this thing in August, part of our future sports series. I won't go into that. And let me just kind of run you through the principles of it. First of all, this thing is endorsed by more than 80 organizations, many of which we work with within Project Play, who sit at our roundtables everything from the YMCA's to the Little League to the hospitals like HSS to more than a dozen national governing bodies of sports or grant makers like Dick's, on and on, right? U.S. Soccer, U.S. Olympic Committee, ESPN, a whole bunch of folks have looked at this document and said, yep, we get it, we believe in it, that's our North Star. So it's very exciting to have that level, UNICEF, that level of buy-in as they go out the door. It was put together. The language was drafted by this working committee here. You can see their names. Basically, sports policy experts and human rights experts over about an 8-month period. This is the website, as.pn/children's rights, where you can learn all about the project. So mark that down. I will come back to it at the end of the presentation. So how it fits into the project play concept. We've been around for 10 years, sort of facilitating, driving this conversation around how to build healthy children and communities through sports. Is the 8 rights, think of them as like the what. What is the sport activity that every child has a right to? A human right too, if you look at human rights doctrine. We also spent a lot of time, and we've been working on the who and the how for 7 or 8 years now, which are the 8 strategies or 8 plays for the 8 sectors that touch the lives of children. So we're very excited to put the what piece in place here. The goals of this project are really 3. Highlight the value of using a human rights frame to grow access to sports, just as Norway has done, just as Japan is now doing, and other nations are starting to do this as well. And that's very important, because when we talk about rights, people can get into a corner and think, oh boy, what does this mean? Liability, et cetera, et cetera. We really need to demonstrate that there's a value proposition here. This can grow the participation of kids playing sports. It is a call as well to inspire organizations to adopt minimum standards for youth participation. And I'll get into that in a minute. And ultimately, we're very mindful of the downstream, because it's not just about sports. It's about addressing, recognized problems, challenges in our communities, everything from racial equity, gender equity, community cohesion, obesity prevention, cancer risk reduction, on and on. There's a lot of research showing the value of kids playing sports when it's served up well. The resources that we drew upon in building this thing, this language didn't come out of just nowhere. We spent a lot of time with the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child, and then these other documents which you can see there, and tried to translate them into a sport context, just as Norway and other countries have as well. And so we're going to run through these 8 rights really quickly here, but here's what you can see. They're all very simply worded, stuff that, it's hard not to nod your head at, so people can get to work in implementing them. So the first right that we have put together, identified, is that all children have the right to simply play sports. That it's really, the research is too persuasive now to treat sports as a nice to have anymore, and just assume that everyone is going to have an opportunity to play. But ultimately, it's the kids from the upper income homes or who are the early bloomers who get preferred access to the system and so forth. So it's really just a call for just straight access. Developing policies and practices and partnerships that include youth from underrepresented populations, and create programs that both meet and stimulate youth interest in sports. Number 2 is that the children have the right to safe and healthy environments. You can see what language we have around that. It's about abuse, obviously. No sexual, physical, or emotional abuse, hazing, violence, and neglect. On our website, we define these terms like neglect. It's about safe and inclusive playing facilities. We're not proposing that all risk be eliminated. You don't want to bubble wrap kids. Rough play is okay, but programs need to understand that when children are in their care, they do have a responsibility to prevent situations that are harmful or particularly dangerous. and that the best interest of the child should always prevail. It seems obvious, but in this win at all cost sport culture, it gets lost pretty easily. The third is all children have the right to qualified program leaders. That means coaches, that means administrators, people who know what they're doing. We try to lay out some, ideas about, general concepts in coaching youth, sports-specific coaching, emotional needs of children, injury prevention, CPR, and first aid and abuse prevention. I mean, we've just had and we still have a nation of well-meaning volunteers who are often winging it, when children are in the care of teachers, we make sure they know what they're doing. When they go to the barber or otherwise, we make sure that the barber and the hair cutter have certification. So we understand what a lift this may be, but it's also a call to get coaches trained. In an online world, it's easier to do this now than it was 5 or 10 years ago. Fourth is the children have the right to developmentally appropriate play. All right, so this just means 6 is not 16. You shouldn't coach a kid as you were a 6-year-old as you were coached in high school. You need to understand their physical and mental and their emotional maturity and their emerging athletic ability, and adjust ball sizes, roster sizes, and so forth. Fifth is that all children have the right to share in the planning and delivery of activities. So this is about voice and choice. In youth sports, again, a lot of well-meaning adults sitting around the table, from the Little League board or whatever else it may be, trying to decide what's best for kids, but we don't often bring the voice of youth into the design of these experiences. So how do we do that? How do we put, I don't know how you engage youth within the athletic council in Fairfax County, but how do you bring their voices into it in a quantitative manner, in testimony and conceptualizing policies and practices? This is just basically consumer research. Every good corporation does this in figuring out how to create a sticky product. If we want to reduce the attrition rate and the high attrition rate in youth sports, we need to be more intentional about bringing the voice of kids into these experiences. Number 6 is the children all have the right to an equal opportunity for personal growth. So really, this is about it's not about just investing in the kids who are the best athletes on the team. It's about every kid. I mean, how do we create an environment where when you're in the care of adults are investing in you in a manner that is really designed to have you sign up again next year and feel like you grew athletically and from a human development perspective during your time with those adults. The 7th is for all children to have the right to be treated with dignity. So this is about sportsmanship and respect for opponents and officials in game. It's particularly important these days. We're having real problems. I don't know what it's like in Fairfax County, but there's a problem nationally around recruiting officials. They're just being run off, and it's hard to recruit them. It's just hard to get them into the game. So we are tying this to a human right. This is sort of a nice thing to have, but this is what kids deserve, this kind of environment. The 8th is to just simply enjoy themselves. And to be honest with you, I would have put this number 1. Just being love of game, joy of game. It needs to be centered. That they have a right to participate in activities that they consider fun and which foster the development of friendships, and we know that's a prime motivation for many kids who participate. So again, this is a concept that's core to the Norwegian children's rights. We put it at number 8 here. We're trying to not prioritize it. It just ended up at number 8. So how to use the Bill of Rights? So this is a slide I've customized for you all, and I'm sure there are other ways you could think about how to deploy this, right? This framework. So the first one is just simply review your policies with children's rights as a filter. If you look at what the language I just went through, and then we have an editable template, you'll see that link at the bottom, and program resources on the website that I talked about. you can pull that PDF up and say, okay, well, how are we doing? And number one, number two, number three, where is the room for improvement? We're not, we're certainly not asking anybody to be perfect in this. What we're asking is that organizations that have the ability to lead recognize these rights as a North Star of sorts and begin to, start moving in that, in that direction in whatever way makes sense to them. Second, educate your youth athletes about their rights. This is really important. Once youth know their rights, they're more willing to speak up for them, and you create a system that is more in balance. So can you distribute these rights during, or talk about them, with coaches who can then talk to them about kids and just help them understand what they deserve in a sport experience. Third would be building youth into decision-making processes. We talked about that a little bit earlier. The fourth is using the power of the permit for use of field and facilities to promote program adherence, right? We have talked about this concept within Project Play for a good bit of time. Anybody, who controls access to fields sets the conditions, you all know this as well as anybody, sets the conditions under which those fields are used. So, are you going to ask programs just for their insurance? Are you going to also ask them for their coaches to be trained in certain things? Are you going to ask to make sure that they're background checked? Are you going to ask, programs to help you, tell you how they are in alignment or want to align or plan to align with these Bill of Rights? You have the ability to change behavior simply because you have a public asset that is coveted and is scarce. And then the fifth is to think about unlocking funding to help programs align with these rights. So, that could be any number of things. It could come out of the general budget, could come from new fundraising opportunities of foundations, community foundations, could be, I don't know where Virginia is on sports betting, but in New York, they legalized sports betting. And they took an idea that we developed a couple of years ago about, giving a carve out for youth sport programs. So New York is going to be $5 million a year. It's not a ton of money, but it's $5 million a year that's going to go into youth programs for, the sort of disadvantaged populations. And there'll be conditions around, we hope around respecting the rights of children and want the money to go to the right places. So how can you unlock funding? I mean, can you advocate in your state legislature? Can you develop, private or public funding streams where you live? So, the value proposition is that, if people put the Bill of Rights framework to work where they live, that they will realize the benefits, from enhanced program quality to a reputation as an entity that cares about the human development of every child. So again, here's the URL, and as I mentioned at the top of the presentation, there are more than 80 organizations that have endorsed this thing. We want to continue to build this. So if your athletic council or if entities within Fairfax County want to endorse the rights because they believe it's a good North Star, terrific. Let's keep it going. Just send a logo to Marty Fox, martin.fox@aspeninstitute.org. He is my right hand on bringing together this project, and he'll be in communication with you, and your logo could be added to the site with a list of the endorsers on it. So finally, we have if you want to learn more, there's the Project Play Summit, which is October 19th and 20th. We'll have a couple panels on this at that time. It's free. Please share it with your organizations. It's going to be a great moment. Today we just released the agenda around that, and then we're actually going to bring this thing back in person. COVID lifting, right? Fingers crossed. But we're going to do this at the Mellon Auditorium in DC, March 9th. So that's going to be another moment where people can learn both about the children's rights of sport and about Project Play in general. So registration on that is not open yet. It is open on the virtual event this October. So, okay, that was all with one breath. I'm going to stop there and see if you have any questions. Hopefully it's useful.
I'm just going to quickly jump in and say thank you so much for that, Tom. I think this is just a great opportunity to share the information, but I don't want to jump on the questions. I just want to say thank you. I see Rob's got his hand up.
I'm sure.
Yeah, this is Rob. I just want to say it's a fascinating topic and really appreciate the presentation. One quick question. Have you all ever sort of dove into, I know this is a right to play thing, but, how to recruit and retain kids from different cultures and demographics that may not play or be used to playing sports? Has that ever been a topic that you all have covered or discussed?
Yeah, it is. We've actually spent a lot of time. I mean, so step one for us is to figure out which populations are underrepresented or are being left out, locked out, whatever else it may be. So we're real clear on that. I mean, because it differs, right? Kids who are first generation, Latino girls are often dealing with a different set of obstacles than kids who have physical disabilities or whatever else it may be. So there's no one size fits all, and we have. I would just encourage you to kind of click through our website. We've got a new school sports project. It's called Reimagining School Sports in America, and we've produced about 6 reports so far. And one of those on large urban schools really dove deep on, developing culturally competent programming and meeting really disenfranchised communities where they're at. So in this case, we gave a national award to a high school in St. Paul, Minnesota, which is the hometown of Suni Lee, the gymnast, the gold medal gymnast, and she's Hmong, and this is a high school that has a large Hmong population. So our report dropped at basically the same time. A classic example, like who are these kids? What are the cultural and the economic pressures they're facing? And so that particular school was really mindful of let's do badminton and let's do flag football instead of tackle football. And so if there's one takeaway from all this is really, listen, go in, whatever population you are trying to address, go in there and listen to the kids in particular about what they want to play and in what form they want it served up, and then design from there, right? So, that's what I would recommend.
That's great stuff. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep.
Steve Bergstrom, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just want to thank Rob. It was an excellent presentation, and we're spot on all your 8 points. I'm involved with a youth club, recreation club, and a travel club, and everything there about the balance and where the focus should be is something we try to drive home, and I think that's great. And I also wanted to thank your organization. We used it extensively last year for COVID guidance on the travel basketball league in the county, limiting travel and what we should do. And I'll just ask you, is if you can update it for the Delta variant, that would be helpful too, because as sports people, they want to play and they just want to go out and play. And so it's, as an administrator, it's always good to have documents and artifacts in the background to let people say, hey, maybe we should do it this way. It's a little more prudent. But thanks again. I appreciate the Aspen Institute. It's been very helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Steve. And I actually got your note that you sent to John Solomon, I think, making that request. And so he and I were trading notes just before this call. Yeah, I mean, we're gonna think about how to kind of provide a little more guidance here. Part of the challenge is organizations like the American Academy of Pediatrics and CDC and these other entities that were issuing pretty strong guidance previously have kind of backed off, and they backed off because they don't know how to. They say they don't know how to kind of create, offer guidance that applies everywhere. That thing is, I think, is also a political dimension to it as well. It's like, what are we gonna piss off here? So they're punting on it. They're punting on it. So I appreciate you, saying, hey, Aston, can you do this? I mean, we don't have the expertise on our little team to develop guidance that is beyond, what CDC or some of these entities are doing, unfortunately. But I'm going to talk to John about at least doing whatever we can to help folks like you, at least access whatever resources are out there.
Thank you very much.
Lester Munson, you had your hand raised?
Yeah, thanks. Great presentation. Unless something's changed in the last couple of years, Fairfax County doesn't really have interscholastic sports at the middle school level. The only option for kids that age are private clubs. I'm wondering if the Bill of Rights, as you've outlined it, addresses that issue either directly or indirectly. Thanks.
Yeah, so we did not get that granular. This is meant to be very high level. We looked at the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child about what are the human rights you are born with, and everyone is born with. So they didn't go into that doesn't obviously go in the direction of saying schools need to do this or schools need to do that. I would say though that there's language in there that every child should have an opportunity to play sports. So if you are a school, especially given the research showing that kids who are physically active, they do better academically, educationally, cognitively, which all makes sense, right? When body is in motion, good things happen. That if you're going to offer up sports, you do have a responsibility to kind of think about the whole student body, as opposed to, again, just the kids who can make the varsity team or otherwise. That's the whole conceit of our Reimagining School Sports in America project, is we're operating off of a 20th century model that is not optimized for the needs of society or kids today. And so we're trying to identify, is that bringing back intramurals? Is that reimagining the role of the PE teacher to be a connector to community programs that maybe the school can't provide? Is it, there are lots of things that can be done. So, if middle schools believe they're in the business of developing the whole child, I think there's a good conversation. And they don't want to offer up middle school sports themselves. I do think it's a fair conversation to say, okay, so what are you doing then to make sure that children have physical activity opportunities? And maybe that's just connecting them to the best in class organizations, those who adhere to the Bill of Rights, for instance, in Fairfax County.
Thank you.
Chris Pulley.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. We just wanted to jump in real quick. Rob, to your point, you asked a question about recruitment and diversity in sports and so on. Tom, I was actually honored to work with John on that grant that was awarded to the high school and on that selection committee. So I do a lot of work with John Solomon. He actually served as my keynote on my symposium, my mental health symposium I had about a year and a half ago. And so what I'm doing now is I'm in the process of working with Jennifer, Tom, on trying to conduct a state of play here in Fairfax County. So we have been in discussions about that, and for about 2 months now. And pre-COVID, around youth player recruitment, retention, facilities, things of that nature. To my knowledge, nothing like that has been done here in the county. And so I'm working with her in terms of a proposal and so on. So Rob, as you mentioned about recruitment and so on, sports offerings, those kind of things, that state of play is something that I feel around the data that'll be really beneficial. We may be working very, very hard to give our young athletes something that they don't need, and maybe find out all the pockets that we are missing in terms of recruitment and retention. So something like that is very, very beneficial, I believe. So I just wanted to jump in and say that from my community outreach perch here, I'm in the process of working that angle and to get some data for all the youth sports organizations in the county to be able to work with in terms of where we are with a focus on pre and post COVID. So I just wanted to let you guys know that. And thank you, Tom, for a great presentation.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Yeah, and I think Jennifer mentioned briefly that she was talking to somebody there. It's you. It's great.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Did anyone else have questions for Mr. Ferry? I don't see any other hands raised, Lula, so it's all you.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for that information. It was very, very, very valuable. I would like to reach out to you after this meeting sometime next week, because I do have a thought and an idea that I'd like to share with you, especially in the area that I live in, the Lee Mount Vernon area, where it's so diverse here on the Route 1 corridor. So thank you for this information. It was amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Lulu, and thank you all for having me.
Okay, we're going to move right along to the next agenda item, which is approval of the minutes. Could I have a motion?
This is Gary. I make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
I'll second that.
Okay, let's go with.
And that was Steve McLaughlin for those of you on the phone.
And so, Jason,
yes.
In terms of our vote, raising our hands, or would you just rather have the nays?
Hearing no objection would be the way to go.
Let's go that way. Hearing motion approved. So the next agenda item is the communication with FCPS and NCS in terms of forming a committee. That was Gary?
Yes.
Bring that up.
Yeah, I'll take the lead on this. And I think Rob Honey will probably have some input on it as well. Basically, it's over the past several years, actually more than several years. We've had discussions within this athletic council about issues, turnovers with communication and communication issues with respect to school closures. Some examples like cancellations by FCPS, the school itself, as well as school programs running later and later into the evening that are impacting youth and adult programs being able to run effectively. We know the schools are challenged. We know that that community use office under Vicky and NCS. I know we know everybody's working hard, but we've gone over this the last few years. And Rob had sent out a note. I'm not sure if it went to everybody or not, but Vicky had commented that if we created a subcommittee, that she and her staff would join in on that committee. But I think prior to COVID, we kind of felt like, I know Steve McLaughlin had, we had drafted up a letter that went to the board, and we thought we were probably making some progress. COVID has definitely had an impact on any ability to basically do anything. We know the adult programs were shut down for, I don't know, probably close to a year, if not a year. And luckily they are coming back. But, the high school level, the middle, and even at the elementary school levels, there seems to be a disconnect. And I think with, Rob and I probably have been the two foremost in, bringing this up over and over the years. And I think really is to have a discussion on how the athletic council may be able to support the effort of trying to improve the communication process, so we're not getting cancellations the day of or the day before. And I think that we, with some of the experience on this council, that we may be able to, put a subcommittee together and draft up some ideas collectively between the organizations and the county units to be able to improve this communications. I would just like to open it up, Lula, if that's okay, to discussion. Maybe, you know, I know Rob Hani is very passionate about this as well. Maybe he's got a couple of additions, Rob, and I took the liberty of somewhat summarizing your email that you sent out. So if you're all right with that, I'd like to open it up for discussion.
Yeah, I would just add, yeah. I mean, I don't think we need to beat a dead horse or rehash stuff, because I think we've talked about this in the past. I think Gary summarized it right, and I think COVID sort of derailed the momentum that we were just starting to create with this committee. So I'm full support to create this subcommittee to help with the communication and organization needed. That's all I got.
Well, I'd like to ask for a motion to accept this committee, move forward with this committee.
I'll make the motion. This is Gary Flather.
I'll second the motion. Steve McLaughlin.
We've had discussion, but if you'd like some more discussion, here's the time. If not, then if there's any, we'll go ahead and move forward with this committee.
Just real quick, make sure it's community use here. I just want to make sure they're under. I don't know if they're here, John or Vicky.
I think it's just Bill from FCPS.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, community use. Yeah, I think community use is a pretty important factor in this, so we'll make sure we get word to them. I would think.
Yeah, they would be a key, I think.
So any objections? None? All right, how shall we move forward with this, Jason?
I can, does anybody want to be chair of the committee?
Could I suggest that minus some massive objection, because we've as was pointed out, we've talked about this for a couple of years at times, and we've been able to solve it at times and things, but I think Gary has been kind of on the forefront of this, and I'm going to politely throw Gary under the bus as the potential chairman of said committee for doing this, mostly because he and I were emailing and he was at the Nats game earlier and I wasn't.
I'll second that.
Thanks. Thanks, Mike.
Do you accept, Gary?
Certainly.
Cool. Gary, I can get with you tomorrow, Mark and I, and then figure out who else wants to be on the committee and all that, or I can send an email out. We'll figure it out tomorrow if that works.
I would like to also recommend, Jason, if you could send that email out asking for involvement, who on the council would like to be involved, that would be great.
Yeah, for sure.
I know Rob would like to be on it. He can co-chair with me if he likes, but I think that if you could send that out, that would be appreciated.
Absolutely.
And we'll make sure we let community use know tomorrow also, and make sure they have representation.
Yes, thank you.
I would also remind that, especially since I don't know when we're going to meet in person, but in all these different things, just remind folks that, especially since I'm sure there will be more than 2 members of the athletic council on this, that those meetings would have to be publicly noticed and all that kind of stuff in the process to make sure we don't find ourselves crosswise of something later on.
Yep, agreed.
Perfect. Okay, moving right along to committee reports. Do we have any other reports other than the sports tourism? Nope.
I think that's me also, Lula.
Okay.
So I'll just briefly say that, as you know, Mike Thompson and I are on the sports tourism task force. We do have a meeting tomorrow. Part of the pilot program that we ran was to do we held out 9 specific facilities that we were going to utilize for tournament play. We developed the survey as a committee. Mark Martino have been in touch with Mark and Karen's staff. They have gotten the survey approved by the county to send out, and that survey should be going out, I would say, within the next 2 weeks, and we would
It's
hope.
out.
Oh, it's out now?
It went live today.
Is that what you were doing when I was at the Nats game?
Yes, I was working.
Okay. So it went live. The survey will go out once we get the findings back from the survey. We'll review those and put a report out. I'm guessing a month's time, Mark, probably. Is that?
We actually put a deadline for next Friday because we figured people are going to get it. They're either going to turn around and do it
or not.
Or they're not. And so we wanted to say, look, you have it. You have 10 days. There are 7 questions. Right. Each one of the questions also has a place where they can have comments and then a comment at the end. So hopefully we'll collect as much information as we can and be able to report that out ASAP.
Perfect. And I think we should be able to get the results and summarize the results within a couple weeks after that. So the survey will go out to the tournament directors that held tournaments, including any of the smaller tournaments that were like 2-team, 3-team, 5-team tournaments and stuff, as well as to those community users who had permits originally for the fields that we used. And then once we get the results, I'm hoping that we can report out on the October meeting. That's it, Lula.
Great, fantastic. Thank you. Thank
Yep.
you very much.
Yeah, Lula, the one thing I'd also, just so everybody knows, I was asked to wait until after this meeting before we do the allocation committee. So the allocation committee will probably meet in about 2.5 weeks.
Okay.
The allocation policy committee.
So are we going to advertise this to the youth clubs, the organizations?
Advertise what? I'm sorry.
Advertise
the survey.
The survey is a survey for the tournament directors of people who conducted tournaments in the county, and the survey has been sent to all of those tournament directors.
Thanks, Mike. It's also being, I think the question, I don't know who asked the question, but I think the question is that it is also going to the youth programs who typically hold the permits where those tournaments were held. That was a decision the pilot program did, because those are the individuals that are impacted by this pilot test. So as opposed to sending it to every single youth program in Fairfax County, we send it to those who were affected by the pilot. I hope that answers whoever asked that question.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I know a lot of the youth clubs have fields, turf fields, regional park fields, and so if they're going to lose their spot, then they should actually have a chance to voice it.
I'm sorry. Let me pause here for a second. The pilot program affected, what was it, Gary? 23 fields, 21 fields?
No, not even that many. I think it was 18. Nine.
Yeah.
Nine
facilities. So
9 2-field facilities.
8. Yes.
Okay, but the point is that we're talking about a policy which is already in place, that the athletic council has already talked about, that only affects a very limited number of facilities and only a very limited number of groups. This isn't something that is affecting every field in Fairfax County, just to make sure everybody understands what we're talking about.
Correct.
Yeah, I just don't recall off the top of my head what fields they are or anything like that. So that's why the questions.
Okay.
That's all I got, Lula.
All right. Thank you so much. Any other reports? And we're moving right along. Sports representative reports. Rob, baseball.
All right, I should give you, I'm coaching third base in a game right now.
Oh, dear.
At Westfield. So my report is, it's a beautiful night and we're excited that fall baseball has started. It's our favorite season of the year. But no, I don't have anything else from baseball. We're good.
Slide.
There you go.
Send them home.
The tie goes runner.
Yes.
Oh,
Thank you.
fun. I don't think Susie's with us tonight. And adult softball is vacant. Steve, basketball?
Yeah, basketball is getting ready to is in the planning phase for the winter. The biggest unknown, of course, is the COVID Delta variant and how that will impact masks and vaccine requirements and all the things. Each of the youth clubs will be working on that, and I guess we will. The second biggest unknown is the actual implementation of the pauses that the health department said. It's not new, but we found at the end of February and March, they were on their game much better than in the beginning of January. So we expect a lot more pauses if the Delta variant is as contagious as it's reported to be. So, and if they're 2-week pauses, then as you know, it's an 8-week season generally. So that's a lot. So that'll be the big TBDs for basketball this year.
Good, thank you. Football.
I don't think anyone's on for football.
Lacrosse?
I think Marianne signed on.
I did. I don't have anything to report.
All right, soccer. So it's been very stressful the last 2 weeks with soccer. Who would have predicted we'd have 3 weeks of rain in August, and the grass would grow 2 feet tall, and that the organizations couldn't get their fields prepared for opening day, which was last weekend. So Fairfax County Park Authority, at least in the different areas, because of all the rains, which the families certainly didn't understand, which they made sure that they let all of us know that they're taxpayers and that their child can't get on the field because of how tall it is. We let everybody know that they can't put equipment on the fields because it would fields and we'd have different problems. So that was really difficult for the families to understand. I think every soccer organization that in Fairfax County that I've spoken to had the same issues on grass fields. And then we had so Fairfax County Park Authority uses Davis as their contractors. And so they fell far behind. So a lot of the programs couldn't get their grass fields opened for this past weekend. And then the schools, I forgot what contractor they used, but for the schools, there's some issues with Alexandria's equipment. So not only did the rain hold them back, but so did their equipment. We were told that they would be all caught up last Friday, but that wasn't the case. There's still a number of schools, middle schools that haven't been mowed, but that was the biggest upset. The other big upset that's happening right now is that with the summer and a lot of people on vacation, a lot of the walk-ons got used to walking on and playing on these turf. So there's big issues with that, with controlling the walk-ons. Not as bad as it was when the executive stay-at-home order was lifted, but soccer is having issues with that. But the more that the monitors are there, the police presence or the user groups are there, the less and less it is with the walk-on. But the biggest issue was definitely the grass fields with parks and with schools. So that's soccer's report. Volleyball? No report. Okay, we're gonna move along.
No, I'm sorry, I'm here. Just took me a minute to get off mute.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Now Rob Bailey here. Yeah, we're reporting that we have our fall boys rec leagues are getting started with McLean, Braddock Road, and Chantilly Youth. So that's good. We probably got about about 12 teams total between middle school and elementary school. We're also very excited. We have the boys high school league going. We've got about 250 boys registered for that one across schools kind of all over the county there. So that's also very exciting. We've also been talking a little bit to some of the folks on the school board to try and understand what the next steps are towards varsity. Because if people didn't know, Boys volleyball is actually sanctioned at the state level by VHSL. We just don't have it here in Northern Virginia. So I know we'd like to get together with Bill Curran at some point and talk about that and what we want to do, how we can possibly move it forward. So that's where we are.
Very good. Thank you. Is Jenny here? Anybody from women's sports? No? Okay. So moving right along, matters of interest from our governing bodies, the school board.
Okay, hello. Sorry, had to push the unmute on my computer. So probably the biggest thing is, yes, we are mandating vaccines for all winter athletes beginning November 8th. That's the start of the Virginia High School League winter season. We put an FAQ out last Thursday that is on our website, and we're going to have an update, or expected to have an update on Friday with regards to some more specifics and operational functions of that, from how it's going to be, everything will be executed. It's for all student athletes that are 16 and over. Will be expected to have will be required to have the vaccine. Religious exemption and medical exemptions will be provided and honored. Individuals who have those exemptions will need to be tested on a weekly basis. From a surveillance standpoint, we're working on a vendor to manage that piece of it for us, so that we can provide that at no cost to our students. That is not settled yet, but still working towards that goal, as well as working on a vendor towards providing the actual vaccines. Those under 16 years old of age will not be required to have the vaccine. Will be, recommended if they turn in their, if they do have it and they turn in information related to that to the health department and verified and then shared with us. We, of course, they will not need to be tested, but if they do not do that, we will have them tested as well on a regular basis. We were the first in the state to announce that. Several have followed. Loudon followed within 2 days, and pretty much around us have followed. Alexandria, I'm not sure of. I do not believe they have, and I do not believe Prince William has. Several other counties across the state, though, have followed that have followed it. It is a Fairfax County and a school division directive. This is not a Virginia High School League rule. Got a lot of questions around that, and there's confusion. I just want to make sure everybody's clear. This is not a Virginia High School League rule. This is a Fairfax County rule or a school division rule, division by division. That we have had, I can tell you in the first days after this was announced, there was some mixed response. I think overall it's been positive, but I can tell you, given that my office was kind of the face of this, it was a decision from senior leadership, but my office was pretty much the face of this. Our phones were very busy last week, and it was not my administrative assistant handled those calls and handled them with tact and grace. And not everybody was very nice to her, but she did a great job. So I'm willing to entertain any questions on that right now before I move forward. There's a couple other things I want to hit, but I figure that may generate some questions. So if there's any questions I can answer, please let me know.
I have a question, Bill.
Yep.
Could you please clarify when a student gets notified that there was an exposure and they're on pause?
Mm-hmm.
Could you clarify whether that, if a student that has been allegedly exposed or potentially exposed, if they've been vaccinated, do they have to, can they come back to school if they have to pause until they hear from the health department?
So actually and it's a great question. So thanks for bringing it up. And it will definitely help things come winter when everybody, all of our athletes are vaccinated. If a student is identified as a close contact to a positive case, they are paused. A close contact falls within those three categories: 15 minutes of close exposure without a mask. And so just based on that, a lot of people, you take a team like a football team or a field hockey team where they can be pretty well spread out, and certain groups may stay close, but not everybody's in the same place for all the time. You're really reducing down the numbers that fall into a close contact. If an individual's reported as a close contact and they've been vaccinated and they do not have any symptoms, so they're asymptomatic, they may return. So they may return to school, they may return to activities, they may return immediately. The health department and the school system recently released, and this was not last Friday, but the Friday before, and then updated it last week, an online system where you could submit your vaccination information, where a parent could submit the vaccination information. It could be verified, and that information is then shared with the school, thus returning our students back to the classroom very, very quickly. That has worked really well and reduced the total caseload for the health department, because that vaccination status matters to them in this case. And so when we get to the winter, when we go indoors and you potentially see a higher rate of cases and things like that, that vaccination status should help clear a lot of the cases or caseloads for the case managers at the health department. So hopefully that answers your question.
I have an extension to that, so
Sure thing.
it has helped. So let's just say, as an organization, the leadership and the different sports organization, they get a phone call and they say that my child just got a report that they were potentially exposed, and that they've been put on pause. So during the time that they have to upload that information that you just mentioned to say return, let's just say that they call and they say that my child's been double vaccinated. Can we come to practice tonight? Should we say, wait until you submit that information to the health department and they release you?
So right now I can tell you what we do as a school system is we wait until the health department verifies everything.
Okay.
So the health department is the only one that can verify that vaccination status at this point. When we get to verifying the vaccinations for the requirement in the winter, that'll change a little bit because we're making it a requirement. But right now we rely on the health department with regards to that, and they tell us when they can return. So once they're identified as a close contact, they're on pause and they do not return until they're cleared by the health department.
Very good. Thank you for that. That clarifies that. Thank you so much.
Sure thing.
Any other questions?
Gary, you have a question?
I did actually, just to follow up on that, Bill, the presentation that the health department did for us last week or a week or two ago, just to clarify on Lula's point, because I know I implemented this for my program, is they indicated to us that if you have close contact, whether you're vaccinated or not, you should be paused until the health department gets the information. And they said that if it's a fully vaccinated person, they would be the first ones that are investigated so they can clear them right away. But in that presentation, they told us that the participant who is either positive or a close contact should be paused until the health department clears them. So did I say that right, Bill, or?
Yes, absolutely. And so if I've created confusion, I apologize. Right now we wait for the health department to clear everybody.
Okay.
So we get guidance from the health department. 100% tells us when they come back, when they not. Think of it this way, though. Once we have, through that verification system, we now have essentially a record of who's vaccinated.
Right.
So it's simply a matter of daily the health department matching the name and saying they're clear. And it really works that fast right now. So it's a much more expedited process. We have multiple communication points a day through our COVID-19 team with the health department team. So it is effectively seamless. That may be something I would think that the youth organizations, that's the part I can't answer and maybe missing is how that communication cycle is going to work.
Yeah, it's not to interrupt, Bill, but it's a little harder for the youth programs. We don't get the direct access that I think you guys have. But I will say with the couple of cases that I've had in my program, they have been very quick to respond to those who they validate are vaccinated and release them to go back to participation. They have done that pretty quickly, but it's still, I just wanted to clarify because I think at one point you said that they're cleared to go back immediately, but you are saying that they're cleared as soon as the health department clears them, correct?
Right.
That is correct. That we rely on the health department for clearance.
Perfect. All right, thank you.
Any other questions on this point?
I'm not seeing any, Bill. I think you're good to go.
Okay, the one other thing that I wanted to bring, well, obviously we started the fall season, we're rolling. I will tell you it's gone, knock on wood, generally well, similar to, and I think Gary, you said it early in the winter last year when we returned. I think when all of us returned, you saw some growing pains with regards to reporting and how we manage cases and things like that, even though we had well-established systems and we felt we were in a great place. no matter what, once you inundate the system, you're gonna find clogs, and you got to fix the clogs. And we did some of that. This again, working with the health department. I give a huge shout out to the health department for the work they've done. They've been a great partner with us through this, and much of the developments that we just talked about come from some lessons learned early in August when we had entire teams on pause and didn't really need to do that. We were able to reduce down that process and expedite the process. So that part's worked really well. And so our season has gone generally, again, with minimal hiccups and minimal cases at this point. We hope it continues that way. Vast majority of our fall sports are outdoors, and I think that definitely helps the situation significantly. Obviously, I think we've shared, and the NCS has shared, that when we come indoors, when you're in the buildings, you have to wear a mask. You do not have to wear a mask when participating in sport inside the buildings. We still strongly recommend potting within groups, whether you're inside and outside. We recommend, taking safety precautions and social distancing when possible and things like that. So, and with that too, we've also had huge crowds at our events, all of our events. It's been, the community wants to be back, and we're seeing that with regards to our ticket sales and people attending our events across the board. And so we appreciate the support from the community. The other thing I did want to mention tonight is we currently have a enhanced maintenance program on the diamond fields that goes back about 15 years, that maintains our diamond fields, our softball and baseball fields on our high schools. Back when I was a DSA, that was largely left to the school's responsibility with the high level community use, and Mark's shaking his head because he remembers as a DSA, and with limited resources, it was hard to keep those fields maintained. This body essentially developed an enhanced maintenance program, was able to provide the schools some support, some financial support. That evolved into a very good program that's there now. But that program is highly dependent on people like me that have been in the job for almost 14 years. And there's no real clear MOU or written document for how that is to be executed. And it's an NCS program that came, and it was just coming into existence when I came into this position, and Paul Jansen was moving over to NCS. And so with that, what I'm asking is that we have the Diamond Field users groups that are represented here, representatives from NCS, the Park Authority, have a subcommittee or a small committee that comes together, and let's document this so that we have this for perpetuity. we have a clear, defined program. To be very frank, there's some confusion on where some of those standards are, and I think it's very easy. We can work this out very, very easily, but we need to document this and have this for record. And that way, when, if you can imagine, I've been here 14 years, I don't have 14 years left to go. And I will move on at some point, as will many of the folks in here, and that knowledge will be gone. We want to make sure that it's documented and there's a process that we can follow that's a little bit more clean cut and everybody agrees on. So basically, I'm asking for the creation of a committee with those groups involved. And that's pretty much it. That's what I have.
Steve, you got your hand raised?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we form such a committee. I'll be happy to head it up if we can get some Diamond Field groups to participate, like Rob, I'm sure, and whoever the softball people are.
Second. But I would also recommend that that in addition to being like what a regular committee does, that we encourage and maybe ask Rob to make this a pre-announced topic and meet with the baseball council as a whole as well, and the softball council.
Yeah, just I got less than the 14 years that Bill's talking about, so I think this is not a standing committee. It's a special committee to do a thing, and we'll do that thing, and get it and move on, right?
Okay. And I totally agree with that, Steve.
Okay, we can talk offline. And
thank you. That's it. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, so I think we had a motion there. I believe we had a second. Was that Mike? And
yeah, you had a motion in a second.
Okay, I'm sure there's not any objections. So moved. Park Authority?
Well, not much out to report. I'm glad to hear everybody's out on the fields. Yes, it was Lula. I do hear your concerns about grass mowing. It was a tough last 2 or 3 weeks with a lot of rain. So we're working on that, but we're glad we didn't tear the fields up either. So with that, I have to bring some bad news. Is Holiday Field. Some of you might know Holiday Field and Oak, the two fields at Oakmar. They're under construction. We're expected to be completed by the end of September, and now we're targeting the end of October. They are sitting there waiting for the turf to arrive. We have delays, supposedly COVID delays from manufacturing all the way to the delivery and even the workforce. So they're telling us now late October. We're anticipating hopefully we'll be finished with the 2 Oakmar fields and the 1 Holiday. More to come. Who knows if they change their mind, if they have more delays beyond today. So that's where we stand now with those. Other than that, that's it. And Mike, I don't want to take your thunder, but I think you probably have some big announcement to make.
Yeah, my thunder. So the Park Authority has identified and now has hired a new executive director, J. Cole. She comes to us from the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission, Montgomery Parks, where she served as the chief of park planning and stewardship division. She has a long history in parks, grew up in Fairfax County, spent time here, and she was approved by the Board of Supervisors yesterday. So we have a new executive director. I am sure that just based on her experience and everything else, I know that she cares about sports and everything, but I also know that she comes in at a crazy time when there is also things going on with the workforce and COVID and all those kinds of things. But I'm sure that that you all will appreciate everything that she has done. I will also note that when the county put out the announcement about it, there are lots of openings for folks who are looking for jobs at the Park Authority. Lots of jobs to apply for. So if you know folks out there that would like to apply for a job at the Park Authority, there's some good opportunities. I'd encourage you to think about doing that. The other good news is that, as I'm sure Gary knows, Patriot North is becoming is beginning to sort of maybe kind of get closer to being a full-fledged construction site. As we get towards making all that work, by the time we next meet, there should be shovels in the ground and real things happening. So we are on target for the baseball complex to be fully built, ready, and ribbon cutting on it probably the end of the first quarter 2023, which I say out loud and everybody thinks, oh, that's a long way away. And yet it's like 18 months. So we are getting closer and closer to a dream that and a project that all sorts of folks in the baseball community and in the sports community as a whole, going back to Elaine McConnell when she was the Springfield supervisor and others have worked on. So I just note that those are two really good things that are going on. A new executive director and on the verge of truly breaking ground and getting moving on the baseball complex.
Awesome, so exciting.
Mike.
I'm sorry. I would also note we had a meeting last night on pickleball, as the effort for pickleball continues, and we had a public meeting on Braddock Park. I note Braddock Park in particular because Braddock Park is a major adult softball complex. As we work towards the master plan renovations on Braddock Park. I'm sorry, somebody was going to ask me something.
Yeah, Mike, it's Gary. Can you just repeat the new director's name, please?
J. Cole, Jai, Cole, Cole.
Thank you.
Well, that's super exciting. Neighborhood and community services.
I think that's going to be me. Before I get into the report, one of the things we want to remind everybody on the Athletic Council is that there's the one Fairfax video that needs to be watched by everybody. And I think, Jason, you said there's like a signature page at the end, like a DocuSign, I believe.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, and the video's short, but we do have to have everybody on the Athletic Council view it. I think we have some that have viewed it. It's due September 17th. So please, and I guess, Jason, you'll resend that out to everybody just so they can click on the link and do that?
I'll resend the steps and everything of how to do it.
Yeah.
Steve?
Yeah, Steve.
I had to do it twice, so someone can use one of mine. But I did get it twice.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Any council you're on, they make you do it for each one.
So hopefully we'll get that done. I just wanted to make sure I didn't forget. Okay, updates from NCS. Fall field and fall gym seasons are underway. We just started the gym season, fingers crossed, with the new directives. Most of you, or at least a lot of you, were on the gym meeting we had with the health department. I thought the health department did a tremendous job kind of letting people know where we stood, and we have that document that's gone out. People are signing that and getting it back to us. And basically for us, it's wear your mask if you're not playing and sign up the link if somebody gets COVID. That's really, we've tried to make it as simple as we can do. Police and school security are back and around. We've hired them. Sometimes those slots don't get filled. I'm getting emails every day that they didn't show up, and even though overtime is asked, sometimes those officers are doing overtime somewhere else or being pulled in different directions. So just know it's not that we aren't trying to get people out there. So we're doing our best. Our monitors are working their tails off in tough situations with some of the walk-on groups that are out there. So just know that we're out there. And if you all know that there are some bad areas that we need to address, please let us know, and we will do our best to do that. We're adjusting to school blockouts. I know we talked a little bit about that earlier, and I know we have a committee, but we get different blockouts every day. Gyms are all of a sudden taken away because some in an elementary school needs to move their cafeteria to the gym, have lunch in the gym in order to have enough space to space out because of COVID. So there are a lot of things that are happening, and we're doing our best to try to get that information to you as early as possible. Adjusting, as Bill will know, to green days and things like that, construction issues, things of that nature. Just also want to let you know that we've gotten some really good support from our high school DSAs and allowing us to use the stadium fields when they're not being used. And that's a relationship that groups need to have with those DSAs, because there are times when practices may end at 7:30 and they'll be able to go on and use fields. It's not everywhere, but we don't have really MOU use of those fields. So that's really a plus. And the DSAs have been real generous about trying to be flexible and stuff like that. Unfortunately, sometimes our user groups get there too early, take advantage, and we have some issues, but for the most part, they're really trying to help us out with that. And I think that's all I have on that particular topic for NCS. If anybody has any questions for me, I certainly will answer them.
Looks like Steve has a question.
Yeah, Mark, I just have a quick question. You guys offer building supervisors when we fill out permits for indoor permits. It says, who provides building supervisors, and it says, in the past, you guys have provided some for us and billed us for them. Is that going to be, how does demand loading look for that this year? Are you guys in a position to support that if we want it?
I think we would have to hire additional people, because most of our building people, monitors, they don't have they're not full-time workers. It's usually on a case-by-case basis. Like, maybe it's a tournament, or I think Luther Jackson has a constant building director that's there all the time. So I'm not sure we would have enough if all of a sudden it was mandated that took place, Steve.
Yeah, someone just asked me if I could check and see. Let's say they wanted some on Saturdays and Sundays at 6 different gyms. Are you a resource for them?
Yeah, I'm not sure. We would certainly try, but as you know, even if we had to hire people, you can imagine the speediness of the hiring process.
Yeah.
It takes so long. The season would almost be over by then. So the last thing, and I'm sorry, Steve, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. Good. Thank you. You answered it.
Okay. The last thing for everybody to know is we have a new AA. I think we've gone 8 months, Jason. Victor
Seems like
was
10
our,
years.
well, yeah, it seems like 10 years, yeah. Our last administrative assistant was Victor, and he's moved into the scheduler role because of COVID, a lot of issues. So we just have hired somebody. They started Monday. His name is Aran, A-R-A-N, Muradi, M-U-R-A-D-I. He is tremendous. So when you call that main number, he'll be the person that you talk to. And so we're just excited to have him on board and complete our staff. So, and the last thing I forgot even, and is that we're in the process, we're almost finished having a tournament scheduler, a part-time tournament scheduler their focus will be on that. And that should be a big help too, to all of us. So that's it. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to run on.
Any questions?
Lula, could I add one thing, which is actually a request to staff as well? I put in the chat the link to the pickleball study. Presentations have been made to the athletic council before. Pickleball is a growing sport, but the comments are being accepted in feedback on that draft study through October 1st. So if staff could send that to everybody on the council, but also I just encourage folks on the council that this is an opportunity to get it out to groups and stuff if they want to give feedback on the pickleball study and how it should work and be prioritized and all those kinds of things.
Great. Okay, thank you. Moving right along, is there any new business? No? Okay, old business?
Motion to adjourn.
Second that.
I do not object.
Mike Thompson and Gary, can you guys hang on here after everybody leaves?
Will do.
Sure.
So meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. It was a great night.
Thank you, Lula.
Good night. Thank you.